The idea for the project originally came from my partner, Jamie. We moved over here 10 years ago, and at the time couldn't really find much to do with Guernsey language. He thought it was a dead language, but it wasn't. So it was about trying to bring what was a hidden culture out, more into the public eye, so people could see that this existed on the island. The concept was to try and take a portrait of people who spoke the language, and to also reflect that in a recording, so you could hear that person speak the language, which again was something that I'd not really seen on Ireland. I'd like people's awareness of heritage, of Jeunesse, to just be increased, and also to show other people, show them that there's a fascinating world out there that's so culturally rich. Jeunesse is, for me, is a brilliant way to find something that's so unique to Guernsey. If you hear somebody speaking Jeunesse, then it tells you exactly where they're from straight away. So I come from a traditional music background, and I've always been interested in people representing their culture through sound, and language is just a brilliant way to just do that really quickly. And if you hear Jeunesse, you know that somebody is from Guernsey or has that sort of Guernsey background.
I first became involved when I first met James Dumbleton. I was doing an exhibition called Chimera, and actually I photographed him for one of my subjects, and after the shoot he asked me if I would like to be involved with this great idea. They were thinking about getting this project going, and then instantly I thought it was a fantastic idea. So I said yes, and then from there we started photographing, contacting people. So it was a great opportunity to be involved with something quite historical for the island. The majority of my influence comes from paintings from the 17th, 18th and 19th century. And it was traditional at that period of time not to smile. People thought at that time, and it's part of their culture, that they thought people who smiled generally in public were insane or drunkard or vulgar. And a lot of the people who had their paintings commissioned were from high-class rich families. And obviously they didn't want generations in the future to see their painting and think they're a drunk, insane person. So this then led on to photography. And the reason people didn't smile in photography to begin with was because of the technical aspects with long exposures. And if you smiled too much, it would be blurry. But also at the same time, the tradition of the paintings carried on within photography. So even in the late 19th century and 20th century, when the exposure times increased, people still didn't smile, because you still had that culture of not smiling because it was more of a formal, special occasion. But as things changed, especially when moving image came along, and then people could see more of a candid image, and people smiling more and people more relaxed. And even that term, the Hollywood smile, came from Hollywood because people were smiling more within the moving image. And then this became more acceptable. And then when people could afford to take more pictures and have family portraits, by then it was acceptable to smile. And through the family portrait and family album, everybody wanted to see their family looking happy for the future generations. So it was like an opposite of what was traditional in the past. So with all my portraits, I like to carry on that history within my work. I really enjoyed meeting all the local people who took part in this. These are kind of the real generation and the last generations of the true Guernsey speakers, and for me it was a real pleasure and an honour to meet all these people, and not only that, to listen to their stories and listen to their life's adventures, and also majority of these people, the people who weren't evacuated. So it's really interesting for me as a photographer, as an artist and somebody who's fascinated by history, to listen to their first-hand stories about their experience in that, but also their life experience. And also having the opportunity to go to people's homes to photograph them within their own environment. As a photographer, I really enjoy that. And that allows me to go into so many different places that I wouldn't normally have an opportunity to. So that was a real great pleasure.
I was brought up in a family where my mother spoke Jeonneusien and my grandparents spoke it. It was their first language. And we used to spend a lot of time with our grandparents, my brothers and I just grew interested in it and decided that I would learn it. So what happens is the recordings take place in people's homes, in the participants' homes, which I prefer because it's very natural. People do feel at home. And essentially I just put on the recorder, which is a very small device, and we just chat, and then I say, right, it's recording now, just ignore it, and then we just talk. Generally, I ask people to say who they are, their name, address, etc. But I let people talk. I try not to ask too many questions. And what's actually surprising is the people that say to me, oh, I won't know what to say, I'm not very good at this sort of thing. Can you ask me some questions? Well, they're the ones that I'm still there after an hour listening to them telling me all sorts of interesting things. This project, it has grown into something quite spectacular, I think. What it does is it makes an intangible asset, our cultural heritage, our linguistic cultural heritage. It actually makes it visible, very visible, which is, often language is hidden. Our language is a hidden language, whereas with these portraits, these photos, we have something to look at, but also with the audio recordings that go with the portraits, something to listen to as well. Au finissant, je voudrais dire que j'espère que vous aurez du plaisir avec l'exhibition. Merci bien et à la prochaine.